Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Manga Chapter review. This one's going to be for Boruto Chapter 80, which is called What Dad Would Do. Now, before we even get into the chapter, we need to talk about the little announcement thing at the end of the chapter, which was not that there's another chapter, Chapter 81 is coming next month, but that actually Boruto, the manga, is going on break until September. So that means we are going to be in a situation where for quite a while we have no Boruto anime and we have no Boruto manga. Both are on break. Manga coming back in September for a chapter, and I guess we'll return to like monthly releases. And the anime, we assume coming back in October, but what's planned for October is kind of special, kind of what anniversary Naruto episodes, which should lead into the actual Boruto content coming back. Now, my assumption about this is that part of this, of course, is that the anime had to go off for like sort of scheduling reasons. But I think overall, I'm guessing there's some Boruto franchise planning happening at the moment, where we are very, very close to the time skip happening. I do think, based on this chapter, there's probably still a little bit left. For one, chapter 80 here is the first chapter in a volume, so I still think we're getting a couple more chapters before we're just cut to, you know, appearing like a few years later and stuff like that. I think they're going to set up more of what exactly is going on here. But they need to plan for when they do finally do the few years later time skip, what exactly the kind of overall plot, what exactly the trajectory for the series actually is. And I think they need to do that for both the manga and the anime, because with the manga now being off, it means that one of the things we expected that would help the anime is it just not having episodes while the manga builds up. But now the manga won't be building up. While the anime has been off, there'll only basically be 2 more chapters in addition to the content the anime hasn't covered yet. So I'm assuming what they have to do here is, for the manga, set up what the plan is post time skip. When they do the time skip, what is the plot of the second half of Boruto as a series? And I think for the anime, it feels like what they have to do is have anime original arcs that fill in the time, the gap between where we're going to skip to like the in between the time skip. The anime, I think it just has to do that. I don't really see any way that they manage to make this work and it not just have Boruto return and the exact same situation be on the verge of effectively happening again. So, weird one here, but it should hopefully help the series when we do come back to kind of start again in terms of a better planned out, so that like we don't have to have years upon years of building up to the really, really strong content. We can just get straight into time skip stuff and we're right there. Because I do think it's important to keep in mind that I don't think Boruto Kawaki confrontation is like the finale of Boruto. I am convinced we are eventually getting to full on dealing with the Otsutsuki, and I'm waiting for some sort of a crazy thing to happen on that side of things. And maybe that's what they're thinking of, is that, you know, because the time skip is like, this chapter basically tells us that Boruto will train during the time skip, return and confront Kawaki, which is basically the chapter 1 flash forward scene. So Boruto will consider himself powerful enough to face Kawaki when that happens. And I doubt the series is just going to end right here and now. So when we deal with what's just happened here, the kind of switcheroo, Boruto Kawaki conflict, we are ultimately, I'm guessing, going to have to face some sort of a bigger threat. Obviously, Code is still around, but something beyond that even, in my opinion. So, that out of the way, let's actually get into going through the chapter sort of like page by page. Very briefly, overall, I thought that this was a pretty good chapter. It wasn't as mind-blowing as, of course, the chapter where this big reveal, the switcheroo, actually happened, and some of the potential for kind of this and that to happen. But I like that they just straight up got to the point. They hit some key beats, I think, really well here. They addressed the Sasuke situation in maybe not the most obvious way, but a nice way. They seem to promote Sarada into a somewhat more notable position with a huge moment for her. It obviously puts Sasuke in an interesting position, and it seems like the core of the setup for like, here is how the time skip makes sense to happen because of the unique characterization of Ada that we get in this chapter. So let's go through it. So cover page is Sarada, but we jump straight away with the idea that the Kawaki wants Ada to confirm the lie to Shikamaru, that they're going with the idea that Boruto has killed Naruto. The Hokage is dead, and you interestingly show Kawaki grabbing Ada by the collar to be like, make sure you do this. And she is kind of stunned by this. And obviously the idea is that this is her dream sort of fairy tale romance, but the reality of it is not matching, of course, what she wants. And she can't charm Kawaki. But this is theoretically what she wants. And so what way are we going with Ada? Is she going to just be so entranced by the idea of the relationship with Kawaki, she just listens to him completely? But we know she has a strong will in that she's perfectly willing to kind of order things around and stand people around and stand up for herself. So what's going to happen here? And I actually like the decision that they make here, is that she begins to be like, yeah, I don't think this is the way we really wanted this to play out. And because her motivation is completely informed by romance, she's not necessarily on any one particular character's side in this, which is, I think, quite interesting to note. But from there, we cut over to, of course, Sarada, Mitsuki. Mitsuki wants to head off and confront Boruto. Sarada doesn't want this to happen. This is when Shikamaru reports to everyone that there's a strong possibility that Naruto is deceased at Boruto's hands, and everyone, of course, reacts to this. So we get Sumire having a shocked reaction to this. Sarada has a shocked reaction as well. She begins to cry, kind of considering this. This distraction allows Mitsuki to obviously get away to go after Boruto. Kawaki just confirming. He's now Konoha's number one enemy. He's no longer welcome here. Ada does question, did you need to take it this far? And Kawaki just says, at the very least, no one will interfere with me killing Boruto anymore. And so this is where we're getting into this idea of Ada doesn't like this approach from Kawaki here, that this reversal of fortunes here is just being used to justify basically Kawaki feeling better effectively about killing Boruto because he has to kill all the Otsutsukis, and she's ultimately, as we'll get to at the end of the chapter, feels that this is a bit of a kind of cowardly approach from Kawaki, which is interesting for their dynamic overall, definitely. So yeah, Kawaki just mentions that Lord 7th is safe. He's in the dimension, of course, sealed away. I won't release him until after I've dealt with Boruto and Code. Konoha, the Hokage is dead, and it's Boruto's fault. That's what he wants to happen. Demon arrives at this point, and again, another thing to sort of annoy Ada. He's just like, get off me, or I'll kill you too. And she doesn't like this. At this point, Sasuke arrives next to Sarada, so we have the meeting of these two characters. He asks where Mitsuki is, and this is where we get the interesting kind of point here about is Sasuke affected or unaffected? My thoughts going in were that they'd reveal he is unaffected by what happened here, but he actually is. We don't get the reasoning behind why that is the case. And if it's not just straight up Uchiha stuff, then I don't really have a clue actually what the logic is about why Sumire and Sarada are unaffected, but most other people are. So she tries to point out that she doesn't fully know what's going on herself. Mitsuki's acting strange. He says he's going to kill Boruto. He's out of control. He isn't himself. And of course, this is the reveal of Sasuke feeling the same way. I can't blame him. In fact, it's a perfectly normal reaction. Boruto almost killed Kawaki, and then with Naruto and Hinata, and she's just like, what? And Sasuke says, I'll stop Boruto before he leaves Konoha. You go back to the village. And she's like, why is he saying this? There's a bit of a surprise here. But before we can continue the Sasuke-Sarada conversation, Sumire contacts Sarada and is kind of like, okay, do you feel like sound of mind right now? And it's effectively just a confirmation of like, we were both immune to Ada's other power. We still immune here, and so it's just a confirmation of that. But before we get the confirmation, we cut over to Boruto, who's running away, and this is where we see him get confronted by Inoshika Cho, this trio, and this is one of the other scenes from the, chapter 75, kind of Momoshiki vision of the future. So, yeah, we just get some of the cartoon beast mimicry. Cho comes in with the big hand, and a shadow possession, of course. And this is where we get that just ain't what a friend does from Shikadai in all of this. And of course, they all believe he is Kawaki, so he killed Naruto. They've just heard that. That's what informs what has happened in this scene. We don't really get too much from Boruto in this, because he's just reacting to what's going on here. Because he knows the full truth at this point, but they don't, obviously. And yeah, and the next page, this is where we get the Sumire and Sarada kind of confirmation here. And Sumire has basically figured out that I think Ada is involved in this. And she's like, okay, explain, what do you mean? And she says it's similar to the phenomenon where anyone who sees her becomes captive, I believe. Something's happened to everyone, and it's the only possibility, especially if you and I aren't affected. So it's this interesting sort of logic where, like, we understand it because we have information the characters don't have it, but Sumire figures it out by like, well, if we're not affected by this or the other thing, it must be Ada as the kind of continuate the thing that connects those two together. So very, very interesting stuff. And Sarada notes that, yeah, like, everyone was chasing Kawaki. Now we're suddenly switched and we're chasing Boruto. What's going on here? The idea of it being a Shinjutsu is brought up in this, because, again, they don't have anyone to confirm this to them for sure, what exactly is going on. And they're just like, yeah, Ada must have done something to save Kawaki from what was going on, but we don't exactly know what. Sarada, once again, is still crying here, and it kind of, the emotion comes on more here. It's too cruel. Why can't Boruto ever get a break? And so, yeah, we get the confirmation. Kind of, you and I may be the only ones who can help Boruto right now. I'm not sure what we can do. So then we return to Sarada and Sasuke talking. And she just comes out and says what she believes. Boruto isn't guilty. He would never kill Lord Seventh. Everyone's being duped. And Sasuke's just like, Boruto may be an outsider, but I've never had any weird prejudices about him. But the reality, I can't ignore the fact that he tried to kill Kawaki. And he's like, he didn't. You got it wrong, Dad. There is a quick cutaway to Boruto here of just them being like, you betrayed us, say something, you monster, to just highlight that. As well as a quick cut inside Boruto's mind to what Momoshiki thinks about some of this stuff. And he's kind of like, just switch out, like, lean into your despair, I'll do it for you in a way. You're a shinobi, you don't want to take down your former friends. Let me switch over, I'll slaughter them for you. And of course, it's about, he is now trying to lean into this despair that Boruto is going through to try and get control of their sort of like combined mind here. And seeing if is Boruto strong enough to keep the willpower up throughout all this stuff happening here. Then we get the big moment of the chapter here, definitely. So Sasuke's like, you've done enough, Sarada, go home and rest. I'm sorry, but I have to go. And this is where Sarada, crying to her father, is like, you don't have to understand what I'm saying, but could you please just listen, Dad, to the first and only selfish favor I'll ever ask. And Sasuke looks down at her. She looks up, and boom, Sarada has the Mangekyo Sharingan. activated. So this is her big awakening scene here. Now, it is important to realize that in the anime, which is like a little bit behind this, but in the same general like event kind of in associated with this, still only has 2 of the 3 tomoe. So there's a couple of steps before anime Sarada has to get to this point. But this is a pretty big thing here. Now you wonder, like, okay, the Mangekyo Sharingan typically is awoken by like some sort of like incredibly emotional moment, like the loss of someone close and an incredible betrayal. And I guess that's what's kind of happening here. It's some sort of a combination of like, you know, she's been told that potentially Naruto is dead. The hurt over just what has happened to Boruto. And now the fact that she is talking to her father and she doesn't seem to be able to get through to him. And she feels like kind of almost like an outsider to a certain degree because she knows the truth, he doesn't. How does she feel about this? You know, some people might argue that, like, you know, is this a strong enough of an emotional moment to make it happen? But this is a wild situation. Let's not forget our reaction when the switcheroo actually happened. And they noted that the effect of this on people, it affects the people who are unaffected even more. Because now suddenly they are some of the only people who know the truth about how the world kind of like used to be. And it's also, this is such an important scene to happen here because of what they're going to do with Sasuke. That him seeing his daughter basically talk about stuff that he, in his mind, knows is not true. Of course, we know it is true, but to Sasuke, she's talking about the opposite of the way the world actually is. But her, you know, passion about how much she feels that the rest of the world is wrong has actually awoken her Mangekyo Sharingan. He can't overlook that. As an Uchiha himself, who has gone through all these various steps and the brutality throughout the history of the clan about awakening the various stages of the Sharingan, especially the Mangekyo, which is always through some sort of a tragic circumstance. He can't like just ignore this, that he knows in a way this happening basically means she's telling the truth, and that it makes him question his own mind because he knows what the reveal about the Mangekyo Sharingan is about. Because remember how he awoke his, where he was being told this crazy story right after like Itachi's death about the truth about Itachi, and he struggled to believe it, but once he realized it was true, that it was that kind of like emotional kind of roller coaster switch that was what actually kind of in the end fully kind of unlocked it for him, if I remember that stuff correctly. And so it's a kind of similar kind of type thing here of just this crazy, like, can you believe the truth about the certain situation that's unlocked it for kind of basically both of them. But from there we cut away to you know, the karma beginning to activate. You know, it's the idea of, is Momoshiki about to come out? But no, Boruto stands his ground. He'll never forgive Momoshiki if he hurts his friends. And he tries to goad Boruto with this. You don't have any friends here. You don't have anything at all. Only enemies. Everyone wants you dead. There's nowhere you belong. No reason to live. Go to sleep forever. But right as this is about to happen, Sasuke flies in and grabs Boruto and takes him away to safety. Let's get out of this village. And everyone's like shocked that this revelation has actually happened here. And we get the idea here of like, okay, how big of an effect has the Mangekyo had here? I first met him when I happened to stop by Naruto's house for a visit. That day, he asked me to take him on as a student. He mastered Rasengan in a flash and fought Momoshiki with me to save Naruto, and we won. That's who Kawaki is. He's Naruto's son, according to my mind. Boruto's reaction is just like, but why did you do this, basically? Quick cutaway to Ada, who's basically, the idea is she's watching this. She sees this happen, that Sasuke has, you know, made a decision that goes against the kind of reality of the world. And she just says to kind of Kawaki, like, oh yeah, I'm just going to do something, you just stay here. And so Ada goes off on her own to talk to Boruto and Sasuke, which is very, very interesting. So then we have the big conversation here, Sasuke and Boruto. So he basically knows that, yeah, Ada's probably going to show up at some point. But anyway, Boruto's like, Sasuke, you think I'm Konoha's enemy, don't you? Why are you helping me? And he points out, that headband, I gave that to Kawaki, yet you have it for some reason. Also, now that I'm near you, I know Momoshiki Otsutsuki is inside of you. As far as I'm aware, he should be inside Kawaki. So all these things together make me believe my daughter, basically. That's what it comes down to here, is that Sasuke, especially because of the way in which Sarada told him and what happened there, he believes Sarada, he believes his daughter, and this is why he's choosing to actually believe that the world is wrong rather than his daughter being wrong. So strong moment here for Sasuke being able to make this kind of a logical decision, or illogical, depending on what way you view it, I suppose. But he talks about how several things are troubling me, but at the same time I can actively feel in my mind each thing drastically bothering me less and less. It's quite terrifying. It's like fighting to like not believe in a way. I never gave it a thought until now how completely undependable my own memories might be. I don't know what to believe anymore, and so I've decided that even if I doubt myself, I'd believe in my daughter Sarada. I shall help you because my daughter wishes it. That is worth risking my life for. And Momoshiki's just like, what on earth is he talking about? Is he in his right mind? He's going to help Boruto for his daughter, even though he perceives Boruto to be an enemy. And he's like, I may be making a huge mistake here, but prove me wrong, Boruto, and validate Sarada. This is where like Momoshiki begins to really freak out, because I guess he felt like the moment where everything would be taken from him would be his ultimate way to gain control of Boruto. This last-ditch final attempt to gain control of Boruto would be through Boruto's complete despair at this switch-up happening. But the Sasuke stuff is unexpected, and he's underestimated Boruto's will here as well. And he's just like, don't let it go to your head, Boruto. This one man's help won't change the fact that you've lost so much. Omnipotence happened. That's the unmistakable reality. It's totally different from momentary deceptions like Genjutsu. As in, Ada was simply the trigger. Even if you were to kill her now, it would not reverse the changes that have already taken place. And Boruto is just like, you're being awfully chatty, aren't you? What's got you so panicked? And he is in a panic here. I'm saying that your role here is finished, so stop being a sore loser, you imp, but hurry up and hand over your body already. And it's just like, you talking about being a sore loser? Give me a break. You're the one who needs to stay backstage. How about you act like the dead piece of crap you are and stay silent for once? And Momoshiki is forced to acknowledge, what crazy mental resolve he has. And this is where Ada arrives on the scene. And basically it's just like, I know that apologies won't cut it, but I'm still sorry, Boruto. And so this is a pretty big moment here, her arriving in front of everyone. And she's just like, do you know what's happened? And he's like, yeah, Kawaki and I switched places. That's what I was told. Yes. And she just says, I only wanted to help Kawaki. That's all, I swear, but it seems I did something unintentionally. I never imagined it'd turn out like this. Something similar happened before. By the time I realized it, everyone had become my captive. And so Boruto figures out, you unconsciously desired that, and your true power, omnipotence, made it reality. And she's like, so that's what it is. What a total drag. And that's a kind of big reveal, because again, Momoshiki figured out Ada's powers. Even when they happened, she doesn't know what exactly happened. So this is actually the reveal to Ada that she has this power that is called omnipotence that she basically can't control. And it is responsible for her charming effect, as well as this switcheroo that has happened here. So some interesting little bits and pieces that are happening here. And this right now is actually reflecting what Kawaki wanted. And Ada's like, you're so calm about it. I thought you'd be totally depressed. And he's like, oh, I'm crushed all right. But even more so, I can't stop thinking about him. The insecurity and loneliness that I'm feeling right now. He's lived with this his whole life since he was a kid. the polar opposite of me. I thought I knew him pretty well, but I guess it was knowing him that even though I never knew hardship, I was acting like I understood. But she says, maybe, but I think he does acknowledge you as a true brother. That's how it seems to me. Which I guess is why he has to change the situation in the world so much to justify to himself truly being able to go through with killing Boruto. That the world has to not see it in that way, basically. And Sasuke mentions Naruto. He also had nothing, just like the current you, and he was shunned by many people, but he became the Hokage. If you are truly his son, as you say, by proving himself through his own actions, then show us just as he did. But he became the Hokage by proving himself through his own actions. If you are his son, as you say, then show us just as he did. So this is the big moment here. Again, Momoshiki getting annoyed here about shinobis and what they're up to, interfering with the perfect opportunity for him to make him despair and lose his will to live. This is bad. This line of talk is extremely bad. It wasn't supposed to go like this. And Boruto speaks to Momoshiki and is like, you should know that I never for a second considered this as losing everything, Momoshiki. I've got flowing inside me the blood of my dad, 7th Hokage Uzumaki Naruto, my mom's Hyuga blood too, and my granddad was the 4th Hokage. And most important, I'm a Konoha Will of Fire ninja, as he puts the headband on, of course. So this is a big moment, actually, because, of course, we know what Boruto says in the chapter 1 flash forward scene, which is effectively, I guess, him returning after the flash, after the time skip, and basically saying roughly the same thing, but like, through everything that's happened, I'm back now. I still remain a shinobi in all of this. That is where my strength comes from. Whereas, of course, the idea in all of this is that sort of Kawaki has, to a degree, like, abandoned kind of what it is to be a shinobi. Like, he had a chance to lean more on shinobi skills, but he chose to focus more on the karma stuff, and that's kind of part of what's happened in all of this. In fact, he says, in fact, the one who drove Kawaki into this corner was none other than me. He's got his own sense of justice. He tried to resolve the Momoshiki situation, even with the risk of Dad hating him, resulting in him killing his brother. It's all due to my weakness. I can finally see that now. I can't let this end as brother killing brother. I gotta get a lot stronger and turn this into a mere quarrel between siblings. So that's what Boruto is trying to do here. He doesn't want this. He doesn't want to kill Kawaki despite what's happened. And he doesn't want it so that Kawaki basically wants to kill him either. So they do, obviously, they're doubling down on the fact that they both do consider each other brothers here. How can we actually end this? And obviously we're trying to play into another sort of Naruto Sasuke style dynamic, so that's going to be pretty interesting. That's what my dad would do too, and you see a sort of like spirit kind of echo of Naruto in this moment. And Ada, watching all of this, is just like, Boruto, are you sure you're only 12? And Boruto's like, what was that again? Who cares? And obviously what this is basically meant to reference is the idea that the main reason that Ada refuses to treat Boruto as like a potential romantic companion is that the age difference she views as being too much, even though she's quite impressed with him in the few times she's seen him kind of talk passionately about things. And in a way, some of her kind of interacting actions in a kind of on a more friendly basis have gone better with Boruto than they have with Kawaki. But again, Ada's kind of where her alliances are here, where her allegiance is kind of fascinating to know what exactly she's doing, because like I said at the start, her motivations are primarily kind of like romantic, but also there's an element of like she wants true friends as well. And how's that going to actually happen? But anyway, she says, well, unintended or not, I also played a big part in bringing about this situation, so it may not make full amends, but until you return to Konoha, I promise not to look for either of you, no matter what Shikadeer or Kawaki say. So that's a pretty big one there, because this was always going to be a challenge here. Like, how does Boruto manage to escape for however many years the time skip is, if Ada is on Kawaki's side and can just use her ability and know where he is? So in this case, she's like, her whole perception on this is that what happened, the switcheroo, was a complete mistake on her part. she didn't want this to happen. She doesn't, in a way, like the way this shift has kind of made kind of Kawaki, as she's going to get into in a second. She doesn't like how this has sort of changed him. She also doesn't really know where she stands in that relationship with Kawaki either. And so I guess she's just going along with this because this is kind of what she wanted. She's going to remain here on Kawaki's side, but ultimately she's allowing for what Boruto has said here to happen. She knows that basically Kawaki needs to confront Boruto, but it shouldn't happen now because the power imbalance is too much. So she's hoping that in a way, Boruto returning after training will fix things to work in her favor as well. So she says, because Kawaki's just coming off as a coward right now, and it's my fault. It totally makes me sick. That's all. And Boruto's just like, okay, I'll take it. And he also says to Ada, please let Sarada know my thanks for sending me Uncle Sasuke. And not to worry, because I'm definitely going to come back. It's just like, I'm not an errand girl, you know, but fine. So I'm guessing that effectively is the reveal to Ada, that for sure Ada knows Sarada is not affected by everything here, because I guess she, through all this, like she witnessed the way Sasuke was talking. She knows he is affected by it, but that he's only here working with Boruto because Sarada, who isn't affected by it, told him to and wished for this to happen. So that means Sumire is the one sort of like secret person she doesn't know about so far in all of this. Now, it's interesting because this almost borderline defeats the purpose of having Sumire and Sarada kind of like as people who are aware, because they're the ones who can counter Ada. But in a way, Ada doesn't need to be countered, because we were told that killing Ada won't reverse this. And Ada doesn't seem to have any kind of particular like bad motivations to kind of take anyone out, at least right now. So I don't know. It's definitely going to be interesting. Like I said, there's clearly more of this to come as we get through the end of these the chapter here. Demon does say, hey Boruto, get tons stronger while you're at it. Enough that I'll have to fight at full strength for the first time in my life. Boruto does say, I don't think I've got enough lives to make that happen. So Sasuke and Boruto are going to head off because they doubt Konoha will stop pursuing them. So he's like, thank you, Sasuke. And he just says again, it's not because I believe in you, but for my daughter. And we do get a quick cutaway to Sumire and Sarada kind of looking up to the sky, being like, you know, Boruto, Sasuke, please be safe. And then final 2 pages, we kind of cut to a bunch of different stuff. So code for a quick moment. Jigen, Ishiki, and Ada, for your crimes of stealing all that I hold dear, you shall pay with your life. Boruto. And then, yes, Hokage Stone Monuments, Kawaki here. It's no use hiding anywhere. I'll kill you so long as you are an Otsutsuki, bro. So, again, it's just the characters reaffirming what they plan to do. Code has vengeance in mind because he feels he's sort of lost everything. All these characters have taken something from him in a way. He's sort of on his own with his army, but no one else cares in a way. Kawaki has had to reverse the world to get into a situation where he isn't hunted, and it justifies killing Boruto, but we know deep down there is a sense of care there. And then somehow, through all of this happening, Boruto ends the chapter being able to remain strong through all of this. Bring it on. I'll show you till you're begging me to stop. That I'm Uzumaki Boruto, damn it. And again, the note at the end of the chapter, Boruto will be going on break and is planned to return in September. So that means no May chapter, no June chapter, no July chapter, and no August chapter. So it's going to be pretty light on Boruto content for the next couple of months anyway. So that is unfortunate. But for sure, like, it's like, okay, they get to escape the village on their own and basically stay away from the village. But I think there's still one moment from chapter 75 that still has to happen. Like, I don't think we've really had the moment of, like, you know, Kawaki with his powers activated, like having some sort of a thing. Similarly, like, they definitely need to establish, I think, within the village for the next while, like, what the whole situation is with, like, Ada being there sort of like assisting Kawaki, but also being friends with Sumire and Sarada, but them kind of being knowing what's going on, but maybe Sumire being the kind of secret character. The Ada Sarada dynamic is now kind of interesting because, like, she knows that her powers don't work on her, so that'll be interesting. Similarly, like, Sarada now having the Mangekyo Sharingan, like, I didn't even talk about it from outside of just its effect on Sasuke, but that is a huge moment for Sarada because that suddenly unlocks her potential as a character going forward. Whereas, like, we know Boruto has, like, the karma, eventually Jogon and stuff like that. There's high level abilities in his future. But with Sarada, yes, the Mangekyo is huge, but also this brings up some problems. If she begins to use the Mangekyo, she's going to go blind. And is there a source to kind of basically do the whole eternal Mangekyo thing, which it requires an eye transplant? Now, admittedly, I know we do technically have all the weird Uchihas, the kind of, what's it, like, Shin Uchiha and all that sort of stuff going on. But, like, it's still a weird dynamic, and I think are we still expecting Sarada to kind of change the kind of path for the Uchiha and find a way to do it without it always being tragic and brutal and stuff like that? So, might there be a more positive way for Sarada to keep her, strong powers without going blind? Similarly, like, what Mangekyo powers is she going to have? So we assume she's going to have some of the really obvious ones that are sort of common across all of the kind of characters, where it's like, okay, eventually she's going to have a Susanoo. The Amaterasu is maybe a possibility, but I forget the details on that. Was that one where, like, that was passed down from Itachi in kind of through kind of weird stuff to Sasuke? Can she actually have that? And then it is usually the idea that each person who has a Mangekyo has some sort of a kind of, like, new ability. So I wonder what they're going to do for Sarada in all of this, and how she's going to go about, like, doing her training, because the person who could train her is gone. So is this where maybe the whole kind of weird Shin Uchiha and the remaining kind of kid clones or whatever they were? I need to read that Naruto Gaiden again, for sure. But is that how that goes? Is going to happen? Because there were little moments, like, was it in the anime? I think Sarada asked Sasuke about the Mangekyo, and we didn't really get the full situation. But I don't know. It's interesting. I know some might kind of be a bit frustrated about the fact that they did something very, very big without maybe building up to it a particularly massive amount. But given the way the manga is, the way it has to focus on just a few characters, I do look at that as being fundamentally a positive thing for Sarada, where her path is kind of clear to a certain degree. Some other quick notes. The other thing that I think makes it probably really obvious that we're not just done here is the fact that where we left off Mitsuki, he was still just, like, heading after Boruto. So we haven't really, like, fully, like, resolved that, and it's like, is Mitsuki just going to be in the background still chasing after Boruto, or what? It's certainly interesting stuff, but also do keep in mind that there's a bunch of other characters and stuff like that we didn't really focus on. Amado, I think, is chief among them, where because of his involvement in terms of giving a lot of these characters their superpower, that means he must have come into contact with our god Otsutsuki's body to give them these powers. So does that affect him? Is there more to Amado than meets the eye? And then, like I said, I think in some of my speculation in the video that I did, if he is affected, his is probably one of the most unique dynamics in terms of what the switch does, because he would then interpret it as Boruto is the character who has the potential to bring his daughter back, not Kawaki. So that's interesting. And then also, he would view it as, I have the off switch for Boruto, because Boruto is the character who I've kind of augmented in a way. So I don't know. I feel there's something with Amado, and that maybe if he is affected, they'll find some sort of a way, like Sasuke, to have maybe him be one of the characters who, just through realizing the weirdness of some of these situations, breaks through it and kind of realizes the truth of the world in a way. So fascinating stuff for sure. But it definitely, this chapter, what it fundamentally did was it really brought us towards the time skip a lot more heavily than I thought we would be. Are we right there just yet? I'm not sure. Because I think it's just a bit of a weird one that, like, potentially we go from chapter 80, first chapter in a volume, we get the time skip, and what theoretically we come back in September and we're a couple of years later. Like I said, I still feel there's probably a little bit more setup work before we properly just decide we're moving on to the post time skip stuff. But we'll have to wait and see. So they are my thoughts on the chapter. In the comments, of course, let me know what your thoughts are on this one here. What are your thoughts, especially on the break as well? Like, there's obviously the chapter itself to talk about, but what do you think the fact that basically the full franchise effectively is going on break for like a third of the year? What do you make of that as an overall thing for the franchise? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.